So a couple weeks ago I sent out an Instagram poll and I had a lot of response of people wanting me to show the way of how to make sourdough, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to teach Casey as well on how to make sourdough. It's a long process. We just dropped the girls off this morning. I still have bedhead. Like, you want to start early in the morning. I started this process last night. This is my starter. I fed my starter last night, and a starter almost deserves its own video. So if this video does well, I might do another video on just like creating a starter or managing a starter. It's only 3 ingredients. You have water, salt, and flour. And the flour that we're going to be using specifically, this is very important. You have to purchase good flour. King Arthur flour is my personal favorite. I don't know if you want to say something about yourself.
I'm Casey. I have no idea how to do this, so I'll just watch him do it and maybe I'll learn something today.
Yeah, hopefully. You can start making this for us.
No, that's your job.
You know, so.
How'd you do that?
All right, so 200 grams of this, go ahead and pour it in there. And it's very important that you measure out exactly. It has to be exact. So 200 grams, there you go.
No pressure.
No pressure.
I'll just dump it in.
Yeah, you just dump it in.
200.
200. Now we're gonna go with 700 grams of water. I use spring water. Do not use tap water, okay? Tap water is filled with like disgusting things out of the municipal water supply. My ratio is 800 grams of all white and then 200 grams of the, and I used to do like different ratios, 60%, you know, all white and then the other percent. But you can go ahead and do 200 grams of this.
Cancel it out.
Cancel it out.
0.
Yep. So we're at our 1,000 grams. I'm gonna go ahead and take it off of the scale now. That's pretty much it. That's what you want it to look like. This is just gonna sit off to the side now.
Does it taste good right now?
No, it does not taste good. In
I
fact,
licked it earlier off my finger and it was gross.
yeah, it's just gonna taste like flour at this point.
It didn't taste like flour.
So we're gonna let this sit for about 45 minutes, and during that time, we're gonna be doing something else. All right, now that we've mixed our bread and it's off to the side sitting, it's gonna go ahead and start its auto lease, and we're gonna be mixing our water. It's gonna be 50 grams of water with 25 grams of salt.
Fish this kind?
Yeah. I'm just gonna use what's left over from that. It's gonna be 50 grams of water. Now, I'm using the coarse sea salt. I've personally never used like iodine, you know, table salt. I've always used some kind of like sea salt. Depending on your scale, it might take a while for it to register the 25 grams because salt is so like light. Yeah.
I was thinking it would be heavier.
Bless your heart. All right, now you're just gonna mix that up. Try and get it as liquidy as possible. All right, so hands are washed. We're gonna go ahead and dump this concoction that we made. This is our salt and water. Just dump it right in. Make sure you get all the salt in there.
Okay.
And you're gonna just literally massage that in.
Notice.
Yeah, we're done with this now. You can set all your stuff off to the side. You gotta put your hair up for this?
Yeah. Ready.
All right. Now really dig in there. You wanna make sure that the water is completely absorbed into that bread.
Now what?
So now this is gonna sit for 30 minutes.
More waiting.
We're gonna be waiting all day. We actually won't be able to cook this until tomorrow morning. Did you just punch it? All right, so we are back. It's been about 30 minutes. We've covered it up in between. And at this point, we're gonna go ahead and start flipping. Flipping is something that allows the gluten to form. Gluten is what makes it fluffy, I guess, and it's bad for celiacs. So.
What?
Celiac disease.
Oh.
Yeah. This bread is obviously very kneady because we keep having to come back.
What?
So the motion that you're gonna do is picking it up and folding it over. You're gonna do this 4 times. So it's gonna look something like this. So you notice how she turned the bowl as she interacted with the dough. There's no real special technique to this. You just fold it over literally. And we're gonna do this about 5 times today. Little trick, so to speed up the fermentation process, what we're gonna do is put this now in the oven and literally just turn the oven light on. Our house is typically like around 70 to 72 degrees. We're kind of doing a quick fermentation process, so the heat from the bulb will emanate the inside enough to be hot enough to just escalate that fermentation process. And that's how we get the sour taste out of sourdough. All right, so I just pulled this out of the oven. Casey's doing a live stream right now, so I just wanted to show one tip. As I take this out, I've pulled it out of the oven. It's looking somewhat normal. You wet your hand after washing, you wash your hands, of course, each time. I'm just gonna wet this hand after drying it off, so you wanna have a wet hand, and then you're just gonna do this again. This is gonna be the second time we've done this. You just kind of bring it up and over and flip it over. It's as simple as that. We have about 4 or 5 more times of doing this, and you can spin, or as long as you fold it over each other 4 times, that's gonna help that gluten develop, like I said. So now you just wanna wash your hand off and you're gonna be good. All right, so we've been flipping this thing all day, pretty much. This shit takes forever. Now, we're gonna, after the last flip, we're gonna bring it out and just let it set in room temperature. I haven't gotten Casey yet. The next part is gonna be pretty difficult, but I figured this part is just it's kind of a small tip just to let it get room temperature on the last flip. So we're gonna wait another 30 minutes now. Right now what I'm doing is I'm just getting a mat. You don't have to have a mat, just a clear workspace. Make sure it's clean. And I'm just gonna go ahead and dump this bread right here directly on to my mat. And it's already starting to develop a smell. If you look closely at the bread, you'll see sometimes bubbles rising depending on how hot your oven is. You don't want it getting too hot, from the oven light, but throughout your flips, you'll be able to determine if it's too hot. Sometimes I'll bring it out and flip it and leave it 30 minutes there and then to put it back in the oven. It just depends. It all depends on your environment, how hot your house is, what time of year it is, how much humidity is in the air. Environmental factors are a major concern when making bread, so keep that in mind. You kind of have to develop your own way of really telling. You have to have a zen towards the bread. So I'll just leave this here, let it kind of get back to room temperature, and I'll go get Casey and we'll start folding it and rolling it and putting it into our bread baskets from there. So we'll be back. So we're back. Casey has joined us. My hands are literally splitting. I've washed them so much today. We've been turning all day. It's been resting at room temperature, so we're good to go. We're gonna start our rolling process now. This is probably the most difficult process within this entire process. That's a lot of processes. So first I'm gonna split this up. I always like to, now that I've cut this, I always like to go ahead and start. These are called bannetons. I think that's how you pronounce it, but I got these off Amazon. It was like 15 bucks. It came in a pack with a scoring knife, which I don't use. This gives it the beautiful texture of the spiral. That's how I get it. You can use other things. Before I had these, I actually used like a bowl. It didn't turn out as good as I liked. First, we're gonna go ahead and just sprinkle a little bit of flour over each of these, and this is just gonna prevent your hands from sticking, okay? Oh, and I mentioned doing this. Hang on. So you're gonna wanna get the flour into this quite heavily, and this is gonna prevent that loaf from sticking to the wood. All right, so now that that's in there, we're gonna start our rolling process. Now, first step is, now that we've split this down the middle, and this is just a bread. I ordered this off of Amazon too. You don't have to have this. You could just use a knife and score it down the middle just to split these up. But you're gonna take, similar to how we were folding beforehand, you're gonna take and fold over multiple times, creating a ball. So I'm gonna fold in, and I'm gonna take the corner that I just folded, and I'm gonna fold into that side. And then I'm gonna take this corner, I'm just gonna keep taking all the corners and folding them on top of each other, okay? I like to do it until it's really tight. So it's gonna become a tight ball already. Obviously this is gonna be the bottom. So I'm gonna use this tool. This is where this comes in handy. I do recommend getting one of these. And I'm just gonna flip, well, before I flip, I'm gonna grab some flour just so it doesn't stick or anything. And you can be real generous with the flour. This tool makes it really easy to clean it up. As you can see, this is already looking like a little ball. And I'm gonna go ahead and just generously get some more flour on top. This is a learned process, kind of a learned technique. You have to be really generous with your scraping. So don't be afraid. And this process is gonna be where you flip it around, scrape towards yourself, flip, scrape towards. And what this is doing, it's making the ball really tight. Flip, scrape, flip, scrape. And I like to do it enough to where it just makes kind of a nice ball. And then I'll actually use my hands to start forming it a little bit more. That's pretty much it. I mean, I could do it a little bit more. I don't want to make it too complex though. Your goal is to just make this a tight ball. And that technique that I was showing, that's how I was, that's how I learned it. I'm gonna get the bread ball on top of my thing, and I'm just gonna flip it over into the basket. Notice that this is important. You wanna make sure that you generously get this on top so it's not sticking, and you just drop it in there. I'll leave them sitting out. I'm gonna leave these sitting out until probably around dinner time.
Do you need to cover them?
They still need a little bit more fermentation. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and cover them as well.
Like bread.
Like bread? Okay. You'll start smelling that sour smell as the day goes on. Oops. I prefer to use press and seal. This just makes it a little bit easier. And you just press this along the edges. All right, and these are gonna sit out, like I said, until about dinner time. After that, I'm gonna put them in the fridge, and that's actually gonna slow that fermentation process down to where in the morning, we're gonna be ready to plop them in the oven. I do take them out a little bit before I plop them in the oven, and there's gonna be a special technique that we'll use tomorrow morning whenever we actually cook these, and we'll get to that here in a second. But I do wanna note, I fed my starter. I put it back in the fridge. You want to do a generous feeding before you put you have flour on your face everywhere. All right, good morning. It is around 7 a.m. We're just waking up around here. I still have bedhead and all that. Just 2 segments where I have bedhead. So I've just pulled out one of the breads out of the fridge. It's looking good. We have, the way that you want to test is if you push this down and it pops back up, that means it's going to be a good loaf. So what we'll do now, this is my cast iron Dutch oven. This is a necessity for this process. You want to be able to preheat the oven at 500 degrees, put this in while it preheats. So this will have a heat with it as well. And this is what cooks the bread, essentially. It allows the steam to release. The steam is what does a lot of the cooking process, and that's what makes your bread good. So I'm gonna cook it after the preheat at 25 minutes, around 25 minutes. And then I'm gonna take it out, take the top off, and then cook it for about 4 to 5 minutes until golden brown. So be about 30 minutes of cooking. And yeah, I'll have Casey put it in the oven. I'm gonna go get her, she's still in bed. Okay, so we have Casey here now. She has her coffee, she's woken up. We have all the kids too, so if you hear them. I just pulled this out of the oven. It's very hot. I preheated the entire pan in the oven at 500 degrees. So we're gonna take the top off first. Yeah, it's just the pan we preheated. So there's some steam, that's how it actually cooks. I've got my dough that's been sitting out since I started preheating. And I'm gonna do this first one and then I'm gonna have you do the second one. But you drizzle over a little flour on top so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. That's very important. I've had several times where I've had sticky bread and this has been the trick to fix it. And then what you do with the banneton, I just literally, I'll twist it and let gravity do the rest. So I'm twisting and letting gravity do the rest. And you just want to do this enough to where it gets out, and I just flop it in. I'll take a regular steak knife, score it down the middle. Score just means like you're cutting it open so that...
Make a little line in it.
Yeah, you make a little line right in the middle. Alright, so our timer just went off. We're about to pull this thing out of the oven, see how it looks, and then it's going to be put back in for about 4 to 5 more minutes, just depending on how it looks. A lot of steam. Alright, so this one's already looking pretty good. It's getting pretty brown, so I'll probably put this in for about like 3 more minutes. Alright, so we just pulled this one out. It was only about 2 minutes I left it in there. I know I said 5, but this is really just to finish it off, get the golden color. And I mean, the 25 minutes that it was in, sometimes it cooks faster.